You're standing in a forest, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and moss. The sun casts long shadows through the trees, and a distant stream hums a quiet rhythm. This is where it all began, where humans first found the power to share their thoughts.
Imagine being here millions of years ago, surrounded by the sounds of nature, rustling leaves, chirping birds, the distant roar of an animal. But then, something changed. A sound was made that wasn't just noise, it was a message. But how did it all start? What did the first words sound like? And why do we still feel the power of language today, even in the silence of a quiet room? This video is about the birth of communication, the moment when humans turn noise into meaning, and silence into speech. We're about to step back in time, to the very first moments when humans began to speak, and to understand how that simple act changed everything. So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just about words, but the very act of sharing thoughts across a distance, in a time when survival depended on cooperation. We're discussing the moment when humans transitioned from using gestures and sounds to forming structured, meaningful speech, a shift that would shape the course of human history. It's about the emergence of a system that was more than sound. It was a bridge between minds, a way to express intention, warn of danger, and celebrate success. This evolution didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, shaped by necessity, social bonding, and the power of shared understanding. To understand this shift, we must imagine not just what was said, but how it was felt, how it changed the way early humans saw the world and each other. You might think language is just a tool, but it's the foundation of everything we do. Every decision, every relationship, every innovation starts with a conversation. Without the ability to share ideas, we'd still be wandering the plains, not building cities or exploring the stars. Language gave us a map of the mind. Understanding how we got here helps us see the power of communication in our daily lives. It's not just about talking, it's about connecting. Every time you explain something, argue a point, or even laugh at a joke, you're part of an ancient, powerful tradition. That's something to be proud of. So, yes, it's ancient, but it's also alive. And it's still shaping the world we live in, every day, in every way. The earliest whispers of language began in the shadows of ancient forests, where early humans gathered around flickering fires. These were not just moments of survival, but of connection, of shared experience, of the first attempts to shape meaning with sound. The transition from simple grunts to structured speech is one of the most profound mysteries in human evolution. We can only imagine the gradual emergence of words, shaped by necessity, emotion, and the need to pass on knowledge across generations. By 100,000 years ago, language was likely a cornerstone of human culture. It allowed for complex planning, storytelling, and the transmission of abstract ideas, skills that set our ancestors apart from all other species. The development of language is inextricably linked to the evolution of the brain, particularly areas responsible for speech and memory. These changes weren't sudden, but rather the result of countless generations of adaptation and refinement. As we look back, we see that language was not just a tool, but a force that shaped human identity, community, and progress. It is through words that we built civilizations, shared knowledge, and passed on the essence of who we are. Long ago, before phones or computers, humans used sounds to talk to each other. These sounds helped them share ideas, warn of danger, and work together. These sounds weren't just random noises. They were like secret codes, helping people understand each other even when they were far apart. These sounds were the first steps toward language, which is how humans started to share thoughts, stories, and knowledge with each other. So, even though we can't hear their voices, we can still feel how early humans used sounds to connect, learn, and grow together. Before words, early humans relied on gestures, facial expressions, and body language to convey meaning. These nonverbal signals formed the first tools of communication, laying the groundwork for more complex interactions. As social groups grew, the need for more precise and consistent signals became apparent. This led to the development of vocalizations, sounds that could be repeated and understood by others. These early vocalizations were not random. They were shaped by necessity, repetition, and the shared experiences of the group. Over time, they evolved into the first forms of language. The transition from simple sounds to structured language was gradual, driven by the need to navigate complex social and environmental challenges. This laid the foundation for the spoken word. To produce speech, early humans used their vocal tract, a complex system of muscles, airways, and resonating chambers. This system allowed them to shape sound with precision, creating the foundation for spoken language. The larynx, or voice box, was central to this process. By vibrating the vocal folds, early humans could generate a range of sounds, from deep rumbles to sharp clicks, forming the building blocks of speech. The brain played an equally vital role. It coordinated the complex motor actions of speaking, ensuring that the right muscles moved in the right sequence to produce coherent sounds. Together, these physical and neural mechanisms allowed early humans to create a flexible and expressive system of communication, setting the stage for the evolution of language. The clever twist comes when we realize that language isn't just about the sounds we make, but the structure behind them. Early humans didn't just shout. They organized their sounds into patterns, creating a system that could carry meaning across time and space. This structure, like a recipe or a map, allowed them to encode thoughts and share ideas with others, even when they weren't present. It was a breakthrough that turned simple calls into a powerful tool for cooperation and survival. This twist wasn't just about making sounds. It was about making meaning. It turned language from a reflex into a craft, a way to build a shared world of understanding. In this moment, we see the birth of something extraordinary, the ability to think together, to plan together, and to imagine the future together through the power of spoken language. Beneath the surface of our spoken language lies a complex web of biological and neurological mechanisms, shaped by millennia of evolution. The larynx, vocal cords, and articulators, our throat, tongue, and lips, work in perfect harmony to produce the sounds of speech. This process is not just mechanical, it's also deeply emotional, tied to our capacity for empathy, memory, and social connection. The science of speech is not just about what we say, but how we feel while saying it, how words become bridges between minds. In every word we speak, there is a universe of history, biology, and shared human experience humming beneath the surface. Imagine a group of early humans huddled around a fire, their eyes reflecting the flickering flames. They're not speaking in complex sentences, but rather making sounds, grunts, hums, and gestures that carry meaning through context and shared experience. These sounds are not random. Each one is a signal, a fragment of a larger story, much like how a single note in a song contributes to the whole melody. Like a baby learning to walk, early speech was a process of trial and error, of repetition, of gradual understanding. It was messy, but it worked. In this way, language was not just a tool. It was a bridge, a way to carry the weight of human experience across time and space. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You've heard the sound of a word before, but have you ever wondered how a sound became a symbol? How something as simple as a noise could become a doorway to meaning? Language didn't start as a system, but as a series of coincidences. A cry, a hum, a rhythm that somehow, over time, became more than just noise. The first words were not written, but felt. A vibration in the air, a pulse in the chest, a connection between two people who had never spoken before. To understand language is to look back at the moment when sound became a bridge and meaning became possible. We are not just speaking words. We are carrying the weight of all the first sounds, the first symbols, the first moments when something was said for the first time. So what exactly are we talking about? We're not just discussing words, but the very act of meaning-making. Language is the bridge between thought and reality, built from symbols that carry weight beyond their form. These symbols, whether carved into stone or spoken aloud, are echoes of intention. They are the first steps humans took toward understanding the world, not just describing it, but shaping it through meaning. Language is not just a tool. It's a window into the human soul. It reflects our fears, our hopes, and our ability to connect across time and space through shared symbols. To study language is to study the roots of human connection. Every sound, every symbol, carries the weight of countless generations who came before us, shaping the world we live in today. In this journey, we're not just looking at language. We're looking at the beginning of how we came to understand ourselves, and how we came to share that understanding with others. You think language is just a tool, but it's actually the thread that weaves your identity into the fabric of human history. Every word you speak is a step in an ancient dance, one that began with the first symbols etched into stone. Language isn't just about communication. It's about who you are, where you come from, and how you see the world. It's the silent architecture of your mind, shaping your thoughts before you even think them. Every time you speak, you're participating in a millennia-old conversations. That's why you should care. Because you're not just using language. You're carrying its weight, its meaning, its memory. To ignore the origins of language is to ignore the roots of who you are. Understanding where words come from can change how you see your own voice, your own power, and your own place in the world. You may not have seen it, but you've been shaped by language all your life. By understanding its birth, you're not just learning history. You're reclaiming your own story. The roots of language are buried in the mists of time, where symbols and sounds first danced together. We don't know exactly when, but we know it was a slow, painstaking process, like a seed growing through rock. Early humans used gestures, then symbols, to communicate across distances. These were not just marks on walls, but the first attempts to bridge the gap between thought and reality. The emergence of sound was a parallel evolution. Vocalizations, tones, and rhythm began to take shape, creating a new kind of resonance between people and the world around them. Language, in its earliest form, was a tool of survival, a way to bind communities, to remember, to teach, and to dream. It was not just communication, it was creation. The transition from symbols to sounds to words was not a single moment, but a slow, steady unfolding, like the blooming of a flower in the dark. Imagine you're in a forest and you see a bird. You don't know what it is, but you notice it sings the same note every time. You start to listen, and you realize that note means something. Maybe it means danger, or food, or friendship. Now imagine you're a baby, and you hear that same sound again and again. You start to connect the sound with something in your world. Maybe it's the sound of a mother's voice, or the rustle of leaves. You begin to understand that sounds can mean things. So language starts with sounds that make us feel something. Maybe it's a sound that makes us happy, or sad, or scared. Those sounds become symbols, and symbols help us share our thoughts with others. In the beginning, people used sounds to express their feelings and needs. Over time, those sounds became words, and words became the way we share our world with each other. So, language is like a secret code that we all speak. It starts with sounds, and those sounds help us connect, understand, and share our lives with each other. Before words existed, there was sound. A primal hum, a vibration in the air, the first echo of intention. It was not yet language, but a spark, a raw, unshaped impulse waiting to be shaped into meaning. The human body became the instrument, breath, voice, and gesture. These were the first tools. A grunt, a cry, a flick of the wrist. Each movement was a step toward expressing what was otherwise invisible, intangible. This was the moment of choice. To create a sound, to make a mark, was to invite others into the world of the unknown. It was not just communication. It was an act of trust, a gesture of presence in a world that once felt impenetrable. The setup was simple but profound. A single sound, a single gesture. Both were the seeds of something larger. They were not just expressions of need, but of identity, of intention, of the will to connect across the vastness of the mind. In this moment, the world changed. The void of silence was pierced by sound. The unknown was made known through gesture. Language was not born fully formed. It was built, one sound, one symbol, one shared meaning at a time. Once the mind begins to associate sounds with meaning, the next step is to create a system that can hold and repeat these associations. This is where the brain starts to organize sounds into patterns that can be stored and recalled. This organization is not random. It's a process of sorting, categorizing, and reinforcing. The brain begins to recognize which sounds are important and which are not, forming the basis of a structured language. This mapping process is essential because it allows for the creation of new words and expressions. The brain doesn't just repeat sounds, it builds upon them, creating layers of meaning. The final stage in this process is the externalization of these internal patterns. The brain translates the stored associations into sounds that can be heard, seen, or felt by others. This is how language becomes a shared tool. The mind creates, the mind stores, and the mind communicates, each step reinforcing the others in a cycle of meaning and memory. Now comes the clever twist, the realization that sound can carry meaning beyond the immediate. It's not just about what you hear, but what you learn to associate with it. This is the moment when sound becomes symbolic. A single note, a single utterance, becomes a vessel for meaning, not just a reflection of reality. Language becomes a bridge between the immediate and the imagined, between what is and what could be. It is the first step toward the infinite. This is the leap that separates the primitive from the profound. It is not just communication, it is creation. And it begins with a single, clever twist. Beneath the surface of speech lies a complex web of neural firing and acoustic vibrations. The brain, like a finely tuned instrument, maps sounds to meaning in ways we are only beginning to understand. Studies show that when we speak, our brain activates regions responsible for both sound production and semantic processing, linking voice with thought in a deeply integrated way. From these patterns, scientists have started to reconstruct the sounds of ancient languages, piecing together what our ancestors might have heard and said. The science of sound is not just about decoding the past. It's revealing how language shapes the way we think, and how we, in turn, shape the world around us. As we continue to uncover the layers beneath language, we find that the most profound truths often lie in the quietest hums and the softest murmurs of human speech. Language is like a fire that started with a spark, not a plan. It was messy, loud, and full of mistakes, but it grew into something warm and essential. Symbols are the kindling, the first bits of wood that catch the flame. They are the sounds we made, the shapes we drew, the things we pointed at and said that or this. Sounds are the flame itself, the heat that spreads and warms the air. They are the breath behind the words, the voice that carries meaning across time and space. We don't need to understand the whole story of language to feel its power. It is enough to know that somewhere, somehow, the spark happened. And so, language is not a perfect system, but a living thing, full of noise, beauty, and the quiet hum of human connection. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a dark, damp cave, the air thick with the scent of earth and damp stone. A flickering torch casts long shadows across the walls, revealing figures painted in ochre and charcoal, human animal, and something else entirely. These images, some 30,000 years old, were the first messages of our ancestors. They were not just art, but a way to remember, to warn, to connect across time and space. They were the first attempts to make sense of the world, to preserve a fleeting moment, to tell a story that could outlive the person who painted it. And yet, we stand here, thousands of years later, with a world filled with words, yet still searching for meaning in the silent spaces between them. This is the story of how we came to speak, and how we still try to be heard. We're talking about the moment when humans shifted from seeing the world through instinct and ritual to understanding it through symbols and stories. It's not just about writing, it's about the birth of meaning. These symbols weren't just decoration. They were attempts to grasp something larger than themselves, to capture the fleeting and the eternal. They were the first steps toward thought itself. Then came the written word, a shift from the collective memory of a tribe to the individual consciousness of a person. It was a way to preserve, to communicate, to control the narrative of existence. This was not just a tool, it was a revolution. It changed how we saw the world, how we lived in it, and how we passed on our stories to those who would come after us. From those first symbols carved into stone, to the inked letters on a page, we are tracing the path of human understanding. It's a path that has shaped who we are and who we will become. You think the past is just stories, but it's shaping your present. Every decision, every belief, every word you use has roots in ancient symbols and gestures. The tools we use today are built on the foundations laid by those who first carved meaning into rock. Your phone, your computer, they all trace back to the first lines drawn on cave walls. You might not care about the past, but you're carrying it. The way you write, the way you think, the way you speak. All of it is a reflection of ancient minds reaching for the same thing, to be understood. To ignore this history is to ignore the very act of meaning itself. Every time you write, you're part of a story that started in the dark with a stick and a wall. So maybe you don't know it, but you are still listening. The past is not just a memory, it's a language, and you're speaking it without even realizing it. We stand at the edge of time, where the first handprints on cave walls whispered the first stories. Those marks, those lines, were the first attempts to reach across the void of silence. Then came the symbols, simple, crude, but full of meaning. They were not just marks, they were the pulse of a language still finding its voice. Ink and parchment became the vessel for the weight of human thought. Each word, each page was a monument to memory, a bridge between the past and the future. And now, in this moment, we are the inheritors of that legacy. We carry the weight of all those voices, all those stories, across the centuries. We are not just users of language, we are its stewards. The echoes of cave paintings still live in our words, in our thoughts, in the silent spaces between them. Imagine you're sitting in a dark cave, holding a stick, and you make a mark on the wall. That mark is the first idea ever written down. It's not just a line, it's a question, a thought, a whisper from the past. Before that mark, people told stories with their hands, with their voices, with their eyes. But once they put a thought on a wall, it stayed there, like a memory that never fades. That first mark wasn't just a drawing. It was a way to keep a thought alive. It was the beginning of how we could share ideas across time, even when people were long gone. So when you write something today, you're continuing that same tradition. You're putting a thought in a place where it can live forever, even if you're not here to see it. That's what writing is. A way to leave your thoughts behind so someone else can find them. And maybe, just maybe, understand you. Before the first symbol was etched into stone, there was a silence that stretched across millennia. It was not an absence of thought, but an absence of record. The mind, like a river, moved but left no trace. The act of recording thoughts was not a sudden invention, but a slow, deliberate unfolding. It was born from the need to preserve, to share, to remember what could not be held in the mind alone. The setup was simple, yet profound. A tool, a surface, a material. These were the first elements of a system that would one day become writing. It was not about control, but about connection. Every stroke, every mark was a choice. To carve a line was to say something. To leave it blank was to say something else. The first steps in writing were not just about making symbols, but about making meaning. This was the beginning of a quiet revolution. Not one of war or power, but of memory and thought. The first records were not just tools, but the first voices of the human spirit, reaching across time. The next step is the mechanism, the way in which the symbols are made permanent. This is where the act of inscription becomes a deliberate choice, a physical mark left behind. Tools are used: a reed, a brush, a stylus, a knife, each one leaving a trace, a fingerprint of intention on the material. This process is not just about making a mark. It's about the act of choosing to leave something behind, to communicate across time and space. The mechanism is the bridge between thought and permanence. It is the first step toward the preservation of meaning. In this moment, the act becomes sacred, a mark made with purpose, a silent promise that what is written will not be forgotten. The next leap came not from more symbols, but from a deeper kind of thinking. People began to see words not just as marks, but as carriers of meaning, something that could be shared across time and space. They realized that by adding shapes and sounds to these marks, they could create something more than just a record of the present. They could tell stories, pass on knowledge, and even build a shared identity. This was the clever twist. Words were no longer just drawings or sounds, but tools of thought itself. They became a way to shape reality, to think about the world in new ways, and to leave a mark that could outlive the speaker. This shift was not sudden, nor was it universal, but it was transformative. It marked the beginning of something far greater than mere communication. It was the first step toward the written mind. Beneath every stroke of pigment and every carved symbol lies a silent, ancient rhythm. The pulse of human curiosity, the drive to make sense of the world. These marks were not just art. They were the first attempts to encode meaning, to build a bridge between the mind and the material world. The shift from image to word was not a sudden leap, but a slow, patient evolution. A quiet revolution in how we came to know ourselves. Every written symbol carries the weight of history, the echo of countless minds reaching across time to speak to us now. The science of language is as much about connection as it is about structure. A bridge built not of stone, but of shared meaning. The first time we tried to record the sound of a river, we stood in the forest, holding a microphone like a sacred object. We wanted to capture something pure, something untouched by time. But the river refused to be contained. It whispered and laughed through the reeds, and the microphone only captured the silence between the notes. It's like trying to write a poem about the color blue. We can describe it, we can name it, but we can never truly capture the depth of what it is. Language is a kind of translation, a way to bring the world closer, but it's always a little out of reach, like trying to hold a dream. In the end, we are all just trying to make sense of the world, not through words, but through stories, through echoes, through the fragile attempt to remember what we've seen and felt. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. I found myself sitting in a dimly lit room, surrounded by the faint hum of an old recorder, staring at a blank page. It wasn't the silence that unsettled me, but the weight of what wasn't being said. There was a story waiting to be told, but it wasn't mine to tell. It belonged to someone else, someone who had lived through something that words alone couldn't capture. The more I listened, the more I understood. Oral histories aren't just about the past. They're about how we carry it forward, how we make sense of it, and how we decide what to tell and what to forget. This isn't just about memory. It's about identity, about community, about the places and people that shape the stories we live, but that we often take for granted. So I decided to ask, what if we stopped trying to write history and started listening to it? What if we let the voices of the past shape the way we look at the present? So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just stories. It's fragments of lived experience, passed down through generations, often without a single word being written. These are the voices of the people, the ones who have been forgotten in history books, yet whose lives shaped the world we live in today. They are the echoes of those who could not write, but who had stories worth telling. Stories of struggle, survival, and the quiet strength of the human spirit. In a world that values the written word, oral histories remind us that memory is not just a tool. It is a form of resistance, a way of being heard when no one else is listening. This is why we are here, to listen, to remember, to ensure that these voices are not lost to the silence of time. You think history is just facts, dates, and names? But what if the stories behind those facts are what shape the world we live in? History isn't just what's written. It's what's whispered in the dark, passed down like a family heirloom. Oral histories remind us that we are all part of a long, tangled thread, one that connects our past to our present and our future to the stories we choose to remember. When we ignore these stories, we risk erasing the very people and experiences that have shaped our world. And in doing so, we lose our own sense of identity and belonging. Oral histories are not just about the past. They are about how we carry the weight of memory, and how that memory can shape the way we live, love, and fight for what matters. So yes, you might not know the exact date of a war or the name of a ruler, but you do know the story that shaped your childhood, your family, your home. That story is worth more than any textbook. In the 19th century, as written records grew, so did the need to preserve what was being said. Oral histories were still the lifeblood of communities, especially among the marginalized and the displaced. With the rise of the phonograph, people could now capture voices, but it was still a fragile mechanical process. These early recordings were like frozen moments of memory, caught in time. Oral histories became tools of remembrance, of reclaiming narratives that had been silenced. The voices of elders, the stories of the enslaved, the testimonies of war, they all found a place in this new form of preservation. Today, we carry these stories in digital archives, in podcasts, in virtual reality. But the essence remains the same. The power of a voice, the weight of a memory, the truth that echoes across generations. We are not just preserving stories, we are honoring the people who lived them. The past is not just in the books, it's in the voices that refuse to be forgotten. You know when you're sitting with a grandpa and he starts telling you about the day he first saw the ocean? That's oral history. It's not just a story. It's a memory, a piece of who he is and who we all are. These stories don't just live in our heads. They shape how we remember the past, how we understand the present, and how we imagine the future. They're like little time machines. But oral histories aren't just for the old. They're for everyone. They're about sharing what matters. even when it's hard to say. When we listen to these stories, we're not just hearing words. We're learning to see the world through someone else's eyes, and that changes us. So, maybe the best way to understand oral history is to think of it like this. It's the voice of the past, whispering to the present, so we don't forget who we are. Before the first word is spoken, there's a quiet moment, a pause that speaks of intention. You gather your tools, not just a recorder, but a reverence for the voice that will carry the story forward. You sit in silence, not to listen, but to prepare. The space becomes a sanctuary where the past is allowed to breathe before it is captured. You ask yourself, what is the story I'm here to hear? And who is the one who holds it? That question shapes the way you listen, the way you record, and the way you honor the past. The setup is more than a technical act. It is a moment of trust, of anticipation, of readiness to be moved by the voice that will carry a story across time. In this first step, you are not just preparing to record. You are preparing to listen to the voice, to the silence, and to the story that has waited so long to be told. Once the story is chosen, the next step is to gather the voices that hold it. This is where the memory is not just preserved, but made present again through the spoken word. The process is simple, yet profound. The storyteller speaks, and the recorder listens. The sound is captured not just as data, but as a vessel of time, carrying the weight of generations. This is not a performance. It is a surrender to memory, a quiet act of trust between the speaker and the listener, between the past and the present. The recorder listens, not to judge, but to hold. Every word is a piece of a larger puzzle, a thread in the fabric of history that only those who lived it can truly weave. In this moment, the past is not just remembered. It is given a voice, a space, and a future. The act of storytelling becomes a form of resistance, of preservation, of belonging. The clever twist is not a gimmick, but a way to honor the truth in the story. It's the moment when the past speaks to the present, revealing how history is not just remembered, but reimagined. Sometimes, the twist is a question, a pause, a silence that speaks louder than any word. It invites the listener to sit with the story, to feel its weight and its wisdom. This twist is where the oral historian becomes more than a storyteller. They become a translator, a keeper of memory, a witness to the unseen. In this twist, the past doesn't just speak, it listens. And in that listening, we find a way forward, a way to remember without forgetting, to honor without diminishing. There's a science to memory, a biology of remembering. Our brains don't just store stories, they sculpt them, layering truth with time, emotion, and meaning. Neuroscience shows that when we recount a story, we rewire the same neural pathways we used to experience it. It's a kind of living archive, shaped by the body and the mind. But oral history isn't just memory. It's a form of resistance, a way to keep the past alive when the written record fades or is erased. The science of storytelling isn't just about what we remember. It's about how we choose to pass it on, how we shape the future through the echoes of the past. In the quiet spaces between words, there's a hum, an energy that connects the speaker, the listener, and the story itself. It's the science of being human. Imagine a river, not a calm one, but a wild, rushing thing, carrying with it the stories of every stone it's touched. It doesn't remember the stones, but it carries their echoes. Oral histories are like that river. They carry the weight of memory, but they don't preserve the details. They preserve the feeling, the rhythm, the way the past lives in the present. The river doesn't know where it's going, but it always finds its way. Oral histories don't know where they end, but they always lead us back to the people who made them. We don't need to remember every story, but we need to carry them, like a river carries its stones, like a voice carries its truth, like memory carries its people. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a world where memory is everything, where the past is lost the moment it's forgotten, and stories fade like footprints in the sand. Then, one day, something changed. A spark of human ingenuity flickered in the dark, and the first marks on stone and clay became more than just scratches. Writing was more than a tool. It was a revolution, a way to outsmart time, to hold on to the past, and to shape the future. In this video, we're going to explore how writing was invented, and why it changed everything about how humans remember, think, and live. So what exactly are we talking about? Writing is more than just putting symbols on a page. It's a system of marks that represents language, a way to capture thought and make it last beyond the moment. Before writing, people relied on memory, oral traditions, and maybe some kind of visual symbols. But these were temporary and limited in what they could hold. It changed how we think, how we remember, and how we build knowledge. It was not just a tool, but a revolution in human cognition. This was the beginning of something vast, a way to record history, preserve ideas, and connect across time and space. So, we're not just talking about symbols. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how humanity records, remembers, and shares its story. You might not think about it, but every time you read a book or send an email, you're benefiting from the same ancient breakthrough that changed human history. Writing didn't just help us remember. It helped us think differently, plan for the future, and share ideas across time and space. Even in our digital age, the power of writing remains. It's how we preserve knowledge, build societies, and connect with others across the globe. So, while it might seem like a distant invention, the ability to write is embedded in the very way we understand the world today. You should secretly care about this because the way we remember, communicate, and learn is built on a foundation that was once unimaginable. Writing didn't just emerge in one place. It was a slow, deliberate evolution. Early humans needed to keep track of things, from trade to time, and so they began to leave marks in the sand or on clay. The first known writing systems, like cuneiform in Mesopotamia, were made by pressing wedge-shaped symbols into wet clay. These marks weren't just symbols. They were the first steps toward recording human thought. Meanwhile, in Egypt, hieroglyphs developed as a visual language, blending pictures and sounds. These carvings adorned temples and tombs, preserving the lives and beliefs of a civilization for millennia. Writing spread across the ancient world, evolving into scripts like Chinese oracle bone inscriptions and the Phoenician alphabet. Each system reflected the culture that birthed it, and its need to remember. From clay to parchment, from symbols to letters, writing became a bridge between memory and time. It allowed humanity to look back, to learn, and to move forward. A legacy etched into the very fabric of our shared history. Imagine you're the first person who ever drew a picture to remember something. You're trying to tell your friend where the berries are, but you can't hold the picture in your hand forever. So you think, what if I make a mark that stays? You press your finger into clay, making a little picture that can live forever. Now you don't just remember the berries. You remember the path, the rocks, and even the smell of the forest. That's how writing began. Writing is like giving your memory a home. It lets you keep things safe, even when you're not around to remember them. Before any symbols could be drawn, there had to be a surface, a flat, stable material that could hold the marks of memory. Early scribes would take clay, stone, or wood and shape it into something manageable. The choice of material wasn't random. It had to be something that could be carved, pressed, or etched. And it had to be durable enough to outlive the moment it was made. The surface had to be smooth and even. Any irregularity could cause the symbols to break or fade. This was the foundation of every written record, a surface that would hold the weight of memory. Then, with a steady hand, the scribe would press the tool into the material. Each mark was a decision, a choice, to record, to remember, to preserve the fleeting now in the eternal present. This was the first step in a process that would change how humanity remembered itself. A surface prepared, a tool sharpened, and a mind set to etch the past into something that could outlast time itself. The first step was to create symbols that represented things, but step 2 was to find a way to make those symbols last. This required a stable material that could hold the impressions of these symbols over time. The scribe would take a lump of clay, shape it into a flat disc, and then press the symbols into its surface using a stylus. This created a permanent record that could be stored and retrieved later. Once the symbols were impressed into the clay, the scribe would let it dry in the sun or in a controlled fire. This drying process made the symbols durable and resistant to decay. After drying, the clay tablet was often baked to ensure its longevity. This step transformed the soft, malleable material into a solid, enduring medium for preserving knowledge. This mechanism was revolutionary. It turned fleeting memory into a tangible, permanent record. It was the first time humans could store information across time and space. Now, the real genius of writing wasn't just in creating symbols. It was in the way these symbols could be arranged to represent entire ideas, not just sounds. This shift from sound to meaning was a turning point in human thought. By organizing these symbols into sequences, early writers could convey complex thoughts, stories, and instructions. This was the first time human memory could be stored outside the mind, in a physical form. It wasn't just about recording what had been said. It was about building a shared language, a common ground for thinking and remembering. This was the foundation of all future knowledge. In this way, writing became more than a tool. It became a way of thinking, a way of seeing the world through symbols that could be passed down, studied, and built upon by future generations. Beneath the act of writing, there's a science of memory that's been unfolding for thousands of years. It's not just about recording words. It's about how the brain processes and stores information through symbols. When we write, we're engaging the brain's prefrontal cortex, the part that handles planning and decision-making. It's a neural pathway that helps us translate thoughts into something permanent. Imagine a world where memory is like a candle, flickering and fading with every passing moment. Before writing, human memory was this fragile flame, passed from one mind to another like a fading dream. Then came writing, not a replacement for memory, but a new kind of candle, one that could burn for centuries, passed down through generations, never dimming, never fading. Writing wasn't just a tool. It was a way to preserve the flicker of human thought, to let memory live beyond the body, beyond the breath, beyond the limits of time. It was a simple idea, but it changed everything, like a candle that never goes out, or a dream that never ends. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You've probably never thought about it, but the way you read this sentence is the result of a revolution that changed the course of human history. Before letters, humans communicated through symbols, gestures, and sounds, a system that was limited, inconsistent, and never truly universal. The invention of the alphabet was not just a system of writing. It was a leap into the future, a way to encode thought itself. Letters gave us the ability to remember, to share, to build, and to dream across time and space, a power that still shapes our world today. So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just the shapes of letters, but the idea that symbols could carry meaning across time and space. These marks, these strokes, they are more than symbols. They are the first step toward human connection. Imagine a world where every thought had to be spoken, where memory was the only way to pass on knowledge. That's what life was like before writing. It was fragile, fleeting, and deeply limited. Letters are the foundation of all modern communication. They are the invisible thread that connects every language, every culture, every story ever told. This is not just about language. It's about power, control, and identity. Who gets to write and who gets to read? The answer to that question shaped the course of history. The alphabet wasn't just a tool. It was a revolution. It changed how people thought, how they recorded their lives, and how they saw the world. You might not think about it, but every time you read a book, send an email, or even scroll through a social media feed, you're relying on a system of symbols that was once radical and revolutionary. This system, this alphabet, was not always there. It was invented, shaped, and passed down through generations, and it changed the way we think, learn, and connect with one another. Without it, our world would be vastly different. We would not have the same access to information, the same ability to communicate across cultures, or the same freedom to express ourselves. So, while it may seem like a simple set of symbols, the alphabet is one of the most powerful forces in human history. It's not just a tool, it's a way of seeing the world. And that's why, in a way, you should secretly care about it. Because you're living in a world that was built on the shoulders of those who first dared to write down their thoughts. We begin in Mesopotamia, where the cuneiform script was etched into clay. It was a system of symbols, each one a tool for recording transactions, laws, and stories. This was the first step toward a shared human language. Then came the Phoenicians, traders who needed a simpler way to write. They created an alphabet of 22 consonants, a radical idea that would outlive their empire and shape civilizations to come. The Greeks took the Phoenician letters and added vowels, making writing more fluid and expressive. This innovation allowed for the birth of literature, philosophy, and the spread of ideas across the Mediterranean. In the Roman Empire, the alphabet was adapted and standardized, becoming the foundation for Latin. This system would later evolve into the scripts of countless languages, from English to Arabic. And so, from the clays of Mesopotamia to the inkwells of Rome, letters transformed from symbols into the pulse of civilization. They were not just tools, but the very means by which we remember, share, and build our world. Imagine you have a box of sticks, and each one is a different letter. You can use them to write names, stories, and even secrets. That's what letters did for people a long time ago. Before letters, people used pictures and sounds to share ideas. But letters made it easier to remember and pass on stories from one person to another. Letters are like magic words. They let you keep your thoughts safe, share your feelings, and even build whole worlds in your head. So letters aren't just shapes on a page. They're tools that helped people connect, learn, and grow. And they changed the world in ways you can't even imagine. Before letters could change the world, they had to be created. The first writing systems were born from the need to record trade, track time, and preserve knowledge. These early symbols were not just marks on clay or stone. They were the first step toward a shared language between people. The creation of the alphabet was not a sudden invention, but a gradual process. People began to notice patterns in their environment, lines in the sand, the shapes of objects, the curves of their own hands. These observations laid the foundation for something more than just symbols. These early systems were often tied to specific communities, like traders, scribes, or priests. They were tools of power and knowledge, used to document transactions, religious texts, or royal decrees. But they were also a form of cultural memory, preserving the stories and values of a people. The true power of the alphabet lay in its simplicity. By reducing words to a set of symbols, it allowed for more people to learn and use it. This openness was the first step toward a shared human experience, across time, space, and culture. Once the alphabet was invented, it needed a way to be used. The first step was creating a system where letters could be arranged into words and sentences, a structure that made language more precise and powerful. This process required a deep understanding of sound and meaning. Each letter had to correspond to a specific sound, and the order of letters had to reflect how words were spoken in daily life. The scribes and scholars realized that by combining letters, they could build new words and express complex ideas. This was the birth of writing as a tool for communication beyond simple record keeping. This system allowed for the creation of stories, laws, and knowledge that could be passed down through generations. It was a revolution in human thought and collaboration. The alphabet structure made it easier to learn and use, which meant that more people could engage with writing. It was no longer the domain of a few, but a shared human heritage. The clever twist came when people realized that letters could be more than just symbols. They could be tools for power, control, and transformation. By assigning meaning to individual characters, humans began to manipulate information itself, shaping thought and culture in ways never before possible. This shift allowed for the creation of laws, religions, and empires, all built on the foundation of a few dozen letters, each carrying immense symbolic weight. The alphabet became a silent army, invisible yet powerful, shaping the course of history through the written word. In this way, letters didn't just represent things. They changed the way we saw the world and ourselves. Beneath the strokes and curves of letters lies a silent mathematical pulse, a universal code that shapes how we see, think, and connect. Each letter is a combination of shapes and spaces, a system that turns thought into sound, and sound into meaning, a bridge between mind and matter. The alphabet is not just a tool. It is a way of seeing the world, a way of ordering chaos into clarity, and of making the invisible visible. To write is to impose order on the universe, to take the infinite and make it legible, to take fleeting and make it permanent. The alphabet is the silent engine of human thought, a language of symbols that hums with the energy of all that has ever been written, said, and imagined. Imagine the world without letters. Just sounds, just whispers. No way to fix a broken window, no way to say I love you in a way that lasts beyond a heartbeat. Letters are the bridge between the fleeting and the eternal. Letters don't just record speech. They freeze it. They turn the moment into a monument. The first time someone wrote mother on a stone, they didn't just name a person. They named a relationship, a bond, a history. Letters are not just tools of communication. They are the roots of culture. They allow us to build on the past, to pass down stories, to preserve the wisdom of those who came before us. To write is to make something permanent, to give voice to the ephemeral. Letters are the silent witnesses to human experience. They remember when we forget. So, in the end, letters are not just symbols. They are the quiet revolution that made us who we are. They gave us the power to think, to dream, to connect across time and space. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. In a world where silence is often the loudest, words become the weapons of the unseen. They shape reality, and reality in turn shapes us. What we say is never just what we say. Language is not a tool, it is a force. It can build empires, break bones, and rewrite the meaning of life itself. Words are the first act of power. To wield language is to wield the power of definition. To name something is to claim it, to frame it, to give it a place in the world, and to deny it another. Language is not just what we say. It is what we are. It is the lens through which we see, the cage in which we live, and the bridge that connects us to the unknown. This video is not about words in isolation. It is about the power they hold, the weight they carry, and the responsibility we bear when we use them. When we speak of language as power, we're not just talking about words. We're talking about the way words shape reality, define boundaries, and determine who gets to be seen, heard, and counted. Language is the foundation of identity, and who controls that foundation controls the narrative of who we are and who we can become. The power of language is not just in what it says, but in what it leaves unsaid. The silences, the exclusions, the unspoken rules that govern who is allowed to speak. Words can build bridges or walls, can offer hope or perpetuate harm. The question isn't just what we say, but whose voice is amplified and whose is erased. Understanding this power means recognizing that language is not neutral. It is shaped by history, by power, and by the people who wield it. You think words are just tools, but they are weapons. They shape how we see the world. And in shaping the world, they shape us. When a leader says freedom, they are not just describing a concept. They are constructing a reality, one that may not include you. The words we choose, whether in politics, education, or personal relationships, determine who gets to speak and who gets silenced. You don't have to be a politician to be affected by language. The way you're told to feel, to think, to act, it all begins with a word. Language is not just about meaning. It's about control. And control is the foundation of every power structure, from the smallest to the largest. So if you care about your own voice, your own power, your own place in the world, you have to care about language. The first recorded use of language as a tool of power dates back to the Sumerians, who inscribed their laws and decrees on clay tablets, turning words into weapons of control. In the courts of pharaohs, words were not just spoken. They were carved into stone, etched into memory, and wielded like scepters to shape the destiny of entire civilizations. The Roman Empire, with its vast network of roads and Latin, spread its language like a vine, choking out local tongues and binding the world under one imperial tongue. The Reformation was not just a religious movement. It was a linguistic rebellion, where vernacular translations of scripture shattered the monopoly of the church over meaning itself. In the 20th century, the rise of mass media and the weaponization of language turned words into tools of war, propaganda, and ideological domination. Today, we walk through a world where language is both a weapon and a shield, where every word carries the weight of history and the promise of power. Imagine a world where the words you use could change how people see you. Words can be like magic, but they're also like weapons. They can build or break, comfort or hurt. When you say I can't, it's not just about ability. It's about what you're allowed to do. Words shape what we think is possible and what we think is not. The words you use at home, in school, in the streets, they all add up. They can make you feel like you belong or like you don't. They can make you feel brave or like you're afraid to speak. So when you use words, think about what you're really saying, because words have power. They can open doors or close them. They can help you feel seen or make you feel invisible. To understand how language becomes power, we must first look at how meaning is created. Words are not neutral. They are shaped by history, culture, and control. The first step is not just speaking, but setting the terms of what can be said. Language begins with a system of symbols, letters, sounds, signs that are given meaning through use. This system is not natural, but constructed, and it is through this construction that power is embedded. These symbols are given authority through repetition, through institutional endorsement, through the voices that are allowed to use them. The first step is not just to speak, but to be heard in the right way. Language is not just a tool, but a framework that defines what is possible. The first act of power is not violence, but the shaping of meaning before it is spoken. It is the setting of the stage before the performance begins. Once words are assigned meaning, they become tools of influence. A single phrase can shape a person's reality, frame their choices, and control their actions. Language doesn't just describe the world, it constructs it. The mechanism of power in language lies in its ability to define what is real and what is not. When a word is repeated, it gains authority. When it is absent, it becomes invisible. This is how systems of control are built. Language also operates through exclusion. By defining who is included in the narrative and who is left out, it determines whose voices are heard and whose are silenced. This is not just politics, it is survival. The mechanism of power in language is not always violent, but it is always pervasive. It works in the background, shaping thought, reinforcing norms, and embedding itself in the very fabric of society. To understand it is to understand control. The clever twist lies in the way language doesn't just describe reality. It reshapes it. Words are not passive, they are active. They are the tools that shape the world we see. It's not about what you say, but how you say it. A single phrase can frame an entire narrative, and once that frame is set, the world begins to look different through it. This is the silent force of language. It doesn't just reflect, it creates. It doesn't just inform, it determines. And in doing so, it quietly dictates who is seen, who is heard, and who is forgotten. The clever twist is that the people who control the language also control the reality. And in this reality, words are more powerful than weapons, more dangerous than fire. There is a science to language, a quiet machinery beneath the surface of meaning that shapes how we think and how we act. It's not just words, it's the weight they carry in the mind of the speaker and the listener. Linguists have mapped the neural pathways that fire when we hear certain words. Words that carry power, that evoke fear, that command obedience. These pathways are not neutral. They are shaped by history and context. Language is not just a tool. It is a force that can be measured, analyzed, and weaponized. The way we speak, the words we choose, the syntax we build, all of it has a science to it. A resonance that echoes beyond the sentence. The real power of language lies not in its sound, but in the patterns it creates in the mind. It's in the way words can shape thought, alter perception, and even control behavior. Not through force, but through the quiet mechanics of meaning. Imagine a child learning to speak, not with words, but with tools. Each tool is a word, and each word is a hammer, a chisel, a sword. The child is building a world, but the tools are not neutral. They are loaded with meaning, with history, with the weight of those who came before. The child doesn't know the difference between a hammer and a sword. They're both heavy, both sharp in their own way, but the words they learn shape what they can build, what they can destroy, and what they can imagine as possible. To speak is to wield power. To speak is to build, to destroy, to redefine. The words we use are not just reflections of the world. They are the world itself, crafted and shaped by the hands of those who speak. This is not a metaphor. This is a truth. Language is not just a mirror. It is a forge. And the words we speak are the sparks that light the fire, the sparks that shape the metal of our reality. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a world where the voices of millions of people once echoed in a single language, until time and distance split them apart. This is the story of how languages moved across continents, shaped by war, migration, and the silent power of human connection. Every language carries a map of where its people have been, and where they're going. This journey isn't just about words. It's about who we are, and how we came to be scattered across the world. So, let's begin by looking at how one language, one spoken by thousands, became the foundation of a new way of life in a distant land. When we talk about the spread of languages, we're not just talking about words. We're looking at the movement of people, the exchange of ideas, and the invisible threads that connect human cultures across time and space. Languages don't stay put. They shift with the people who speak them, carried on the winds of migration, trade, and conquest. Each word is a footprint in the sand of history. The spread of a language isn't just about numbers. It's about identity, survival, and the resilience of communities who hold onto their tongue even when the world changes around them. Some languages travel far, while others remain in small pockets, their voices fading but never silenced. We're tracing the echoes of these journeys across the globe. This is more than linguistics. It's a story of human connection, of how we've shaped each other through language, and of the legacy we leave behind in every word we speak. Understanding how languages spread across continents is more than just learning words. It's uncovering the hidden stories of human migration, trade, and survival. Every language is a map of its people's journey. It holds the echoes of ancient migrations, the footprints of trade routes, and the scars of conquest and coexistence. You might not realize it, but the words you use today are the result of centuries of movement, adaptation, and transformation. They are not just tools, they are testimonies. By paying attention to the spread of languages, you're not just learning about communication. You're learning about the very fabric of who we are as a species. So, even if you don't speak a second language, the spread of languages is a story that belongs to you. It connects your past to your present, and your present to your future. The first great migrations began over 100,000 years ago, when early humans left Africa and spread across the globe. These movements were driven by survival, curiosity, and the need to find new resources. Language, in those early days, was the tool that allowed them to navigate unfamiliar landscapes and build shared understanding. As they moved, languages diversified, shaped by geography, isolation, and the cultures that formed around them. Each new settlement became a new linguistic island, where words evolved to fit the needs of its people. Some languages faded, while others thrived, carried by generations of speakers. Empires rose and fell, bringing languages with them. Conquests, trade, and colonization spread languages across continents. Some languages were imposed, others merged, and a few were lost entirely. Yet, even in the face of decline, languages kept evolving, adapting to the world around them. In the modern era, globalization has accelerated the spread of languages, but it has also led to greater loss. The world is now more connected than ever, yet many smaller languages are disappearing, replaced by dominant global tongues. This is a time of both challenge and opportunity for linguistic diversity. Understanding the history of language is to understand the history of human connection. Every word we speak carries the weight of countless journeys, battles, and shared moments. It is through language that we remember, and through memory that we carry our past into the future. Imagine you're standing in a big room with everyone speaking different languages, but then someone walks in and starts talking to everyone, and suddenly, everyone starts speaking the same way. That's how languages spread. One person, one idea, and then it grows like a tree, reaching out to others. When people move, bring their language with them, and it starts to change and mix with others, like colors in a painting. So, even though we all speak different languages, we're all connected by the same idea, that words can carry us far and that sharing them changes the world. To understand how languages spread, we must first look at the ancient world as a vast, interconnected network of human movement and exchange. People didn't just live in isolated pockets. They traveled, traded, and built relationships across great distances. At the heart of this network were groups of people who carried their languages with them, just as they carried goods, ideas, and traditions. Language wasn't just communication. It was identity, culture, and survival. As they moved, they encountered other groups, leading to language contact, borrowing, and even the birth of new languages. This was not a sudden event, but a slow, evolving process of human interaction. The setup for language spread was simple: people moving, people meeting, and people sharing. From the earliest times, this pattern of interaction laid the foundation for the linguistic landscapes we see today. Once a language is established in a region, it begins to spread through contact. Trade, migration, conquest, or even cultural influence. People who move or interact with speakers of another language start to adopt elements of it, sometimes gradually, sometimes through force. This spread isn't always peaceful. Often, dominant languages replace smaller ones, especially when one society becomes more powerful. Over time, the language of the conqueror becomes the language of the conquered. Sometimes, languages mix rather than replace. When different groups live side by side, they may borrow words, grammar, or sounds from each other, creating new, hybrid languages that reflect shared histories. Language spread is a slow, complex process, shaped by both human agency and historical forces. It's not just about words. It's about identity, power, and the way people connect across distances. Understanding how languages spread helps us see how human history is written, not just in monuments or wars, but in the way people communicate across time and space. The clever twist comes when people start to mix languages, not just because of trade, but because of necessity. When two groups need to communicate, they don't just borrow words, they start to blend entire grammatical structures. This blending is not random. It happens when people are forced to live together, or when one group becomes dominant and the other adapts. It's a slow, deliberate process, like a river carving a path through stone. These hybrid languages often take root in regions where cultural exchange is constant. They are the silent testament to how much we can learn from one another, even when we come from different worlds. So, the clever twist is not just about mixing words. It's about creating new ways of thinking, new ways of being, through the very act of speaking across boundaries. Underneath the surface of language, there's a science of sound, of genetics, of migration, a hidden rhythm that connects us all. Genetic markers and linguistic patterns have revealed that all humans share a common origin, a fact etched into the very structure of our speech. These patterns are not random. They're echoes of our shared past, a testament to how language and biology have evolved together. The science of language is more than words. It's a map of our history, a code we're still trying to decode. As we look back, we see not just languages, but the people who spoke them. Their struggles, their stories, their silent contributions to the world we know today. Imagine a language as a seed. It starts small, rooted in one place. But as it spreads, it takes on new soil, new nutrients, and sometimes it changes shape. As the language moves, it adapts to the people who speak it, just like a plant adapts to its environment. It may grow taller, or it may bend and twist to survive. Each branch is a dialect, each fruit a new speaker, and each seed a future language. It's not perfect, but it's alive, evolving, and full of potential. So when we see the world's languages, we're looking at a forest of thought. Each tree a different way of seeing, speaking, and being in the world. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Have you ever noticed how the way you speak can feel like a piece of yourself, something you can't quite shake, even when you try? Language isn't just words. It's the rhythm of your childhood, the cadence of your home, the accent of your ancestors, all woven into the sound of your voice. When we speak, we're not just communicating. We're revealing who we are, who we've been, and who we might become. Language is the first map we ever make of the world, and it shapes the way we see, feel, and understand everything around us. In the silence between words, there's a story waiting to be told. And it's the story of who we are. When we speak, we don't just say words. We carry the weight of generations. Language is more than sound. It's the invisible thread that ties us to our past, our family, and our ancestors. Every word we use is a window into who we are. It's how we remember our roots, how we tell our stories, and how we define what it means to belong. Language shapes the way we think, the way we see the world. It molds our values, our beliefs, and even the way we feel about ourselves. When a language disappears, something intangible, a piece of soul, is lost. It's not just words that vanish. It's the way we connect with our history and with each other. So when we talk about language, we're not just talking about grammar or vocabulary. We're talking about identity, belonging, and the echoes of who we are. You may not realize it, but every word you speak is a brushstroke on the canvas of your identity. Language isn't just a tool. It's a mirror that reflects who you are and who you are becoming. When you speak in your native tongue, you are not just communicating. You are anchoring yourself in a history, a culture, a way of seeing the world that has been passed down through generations. When you speak in another language, you are not just adapting. You are transforming. You are carrying the weight of new ideas, new emotions, new ways of understanding the world. Language is the invisible thread that weaves your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self into the fabric of the world. It shapes not only how you see, but who you are allowed to be. So, yes, you should secretly care about this, because the way you speak is not just about communication. It's about belonging, about legacy, about the very essence of who you are. From the first spoken word, language has been more than communication. It has been a mirror to the soul of a people, a vessel for their stories, and a scaffold for their identity. As civilizations rose and fell, their languages carried their myths, laws, and dreams. Each dialect was a fingerprint of a culture, and every shift in language was a shift in who they were becoming. Colonization, migration, and war have erased and reshaped languages, but they have also forged new identities from the remnants of old. Language is not just what we speak, it is who we are. Even in the digital age, language remains the last bastion of individuality. We speak, write, and think in ways that define us, even as the world around us changes. Language is the thread that binds us to our past, and the needle that stitches us into the future. It is through language that we remember, belong, and become. Imagine you're in a room with only one word to describe everything you are. That word is your name. It holds your history, your family, your place in the world. When you speak, you're not just saying words. You're telling the world who you are. Every word you use is a piece of your story, your home, your people. If you lose your language, you lose part of your soul. It's not just words. It's who you are, where you come from, and how you see the world. So when you learn a new language, you're not just learning to speak. You're learning to belong, to feel at home in a different world. Language is the thread that weaves us into the world. It's how we say, I am here and I belong. Language is not just a tool, but the foundation upon which we build our sense of self. It is the first mirror we see ourselves in, the first frame through which we interpret the world. From the moment we are born, words are the first things we hear. They shape the rhythms of our thoughts, the contours of our emotions, and the boundaries of our understanding. Our language teaches us how to see, how to feel, how to belong. It is the scaffolding that allows us to construct meaning from the chaos of experience. It is not merely what we say, but how we say it that defines who we are. The way our tongue moves, the inflections we use, the silences between words, all are part of the silent agreement between speaker and listener. Language is a living thing, constantly evolving, shaped by those who speak it. It is a reflection of our collective memory, our shared struggles, and our enduring hope. Language is not just a tool, but a framework through which we interpret the world. It molds how we see ourselves and others, and in doing so, it shapes the very foundation of identity. Every word we speak carries weight, not just in meaning, but in context. The way we describe our experiences, our emotions, and our place in the world is dictated by the language we've inherited and internalized. Through language, we construct narratives about who we are and who we are becoming. These narratives are not fixed. They evolve, shift, and sometimes fracture under the weight of experience and change. The words we use to describe ourselves and our lives become the scaffolding of our identity. They are the foundation upon which we build our sense of belonging, purpose, and meaning. In the quiet moments when words are few, the power of language reveals itself. It is in these spaces that we find the echoes of who we are and who we hope to become. Language isn't just a tool, it's a mirror. It reflects who we are, but it also shapes the way we see the world, often without us realizing it. When we speak, we're not just using words. We're embedding ourselves in a culture, a history, a set of assumptions that have been passed down through generations. This is the clever twist. Language doesn't just reflect identity, it molds it. It gives shape to our thoughts, our values, and our sense of self. Through language, we define who we are, but we also define who we are not. It creates boundaries, and in doing so, it creates us. So, when we speak, we are not just expressing ourselves. We are building the world we live in, one word at a time. Underneath the words we speak, there's a science of sound that shapes how we perceive ourselves and others. Language isn't just communication, it's the architecture of thought. Neuroscience reveals that the brain wires itself around the language it uses, reinforcing the boundaries of identity through patterns of speech and thought. When we learn a new language, we're not just acquiring words, we're adopting a new way of seeing the world, a new way of being in it. This science is quiet, but it hums beneath every conversations, every silence, every word we choose to say or leave unsaid. Language is not just a tool. It is the very ground upon which we stand, shaping the contours of who we are and who we might yet become. Language is like the bones of a house. It holds everything together, gives it shape, and without it, the walls collapse into silence. When we speak, we are not just saying words. We are building the walls, the roof, the very foundation of who we are. But language isn't just a structure. It's a living thing, breathing, evolving, shaped by the people who use it. It's the invisible hand that guides us, not through force, but through habit, repetition, and the shared rhythm of our lives. And in that repetition, in that shared rhythm, we find not just identity, but belonging. A home, even in the silence between words. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You know that moment when you're staring at the stars and it feels like the universe is speaking to you in a language you can't quite understand? That feeling isn't just awe. It's the quiet hum of something ancient, something that shapes the way we think, the way we build, the way we dream. Language is not just words. It's the scaffolding on which our understanding of the world is built. And yet, it's the very thing that allowed us to look beyond the stars and build the machines that now let us see them up close. So, what happens when the language we use to describe the world changes? What happens when we learn to speak in new ways? That's the question we're going to explore today, how language shapes the development of science and technology. When we talk about language and science, we're not just talking about words. We're talking about the tools that let us describe, predict, and control the world around us. Language is the scaffolding of scientific thought. It's how we frame questions, build hypotheses, and communicate our discoveries to others. Without precise language, science would be just a collection of observations, not a systematic pursuit of truth. Language also shapes how we think about technology. The words we use to describe machines, data, and systems influence how we design and use them. So when we explore the relationship between language and science, we're uncovering how communication fuels innovation, and how innovation, in turn, reshapes the way we speak. You might not think about it, but the way we describe the world shapes how we understand it. Every time we name a concept, we give it a place in our minds. Language is more than words. It's a framework for thinking. The terms we use to describe technology and science define the limits of our imagination. When we talk about the future of AI or quantum computing, we're not just sharing information. We're creating the foundation for what's possible. Language isn't just a tool for communication. It's a bridge between what we know and what we can build. It shapes the way we see the world and the way we change it. The next breakthrough in science or technology may come from a single word, a single phrase, or a single way of thinking that hasn't been expressed yet. The first sparks of scientific thought emerged in ancient Mesopotamia, where early cuneiform script allowed people to record observations about the stars, the floods, and the cycles of life. In Greece, philosophers like Aristotle used language to categorize the natural world, laying the foundation for logic and empirical reasoning that would shape centuries of scientific inquiry. The Renaissance brought a revival of classical knowledge, and with it, the rise of vernacular languages that made scientific ideas more accessible to the emerging middle class. The 17th century saw the birth of modern science, with figures like Newton and Descartes using precise language to describe the laws of nature, bridging the gap between thought and experiment. By the 19th century, the rise of scientific journals and standardized terminology allowed ideas to spread globally, uniting minds across continents in the pursuit of knowledge. Today, we speak in a language of equations, code, and data, a continuation of the same quest to understand the world, carried forward by the same tools of expression. Imagine you're building a tower with blocks. Each block is a word. When you stack them right, the tower stands tall. Like ideas in science and tech, words help us build things we never could before. Now, imagine you're trying to tell someone how to build that tower. If you don't use the right words, they might not understand. That's why words matter. They help us share ideas clearly. When we use words to describe new things like electricity or space, we start to understand them better. That's how science and tech grow, by learning to speak about the world with new words. So, words are like tools. They help us build, explore, and imagine. Without them, we wouldn't have rockets, computers, or even the internet. Words are the first step to making the impossible possible. The most important thing about words is that they help us think. When we learn new words, we learn new ways to look at the world. That's how we make discoveries and change the future. The foundation of any scientific or technological endeavor begins with a question, often born from observation, curiosity, or a need to solve a problem. This question, simple as it may seem, is the spark that ignites the process of discovery. It sets the stage for everything that follows. Language becomes the tool through which we articulate these observations, frame hypotheses, and communicate our findings to others. This is where the bridge between thought and reality is built. Language gives shape to abstract ideas, allowing them to be shared and tested. Without this initial setup, without a clear question, a method, and a way to express what we are seeking, we are left with only silence and uncertainty. Once language is established, it becomes a system of shared meaning. This shared meaning allows for the creation of symbols, which are the foundation of all scientific and technological progress. These symbols are not just arbitrary marks. They carry the weight of collective knowledge. They allow people to build on each other's ideas, making the accumulation of knowledge possible. This abstraction leads to the creation of models and theories, which are the blueprints of all scientific and technological advancement. They are the maps that guide exploration and invention. These models, though abstract, are grounded in the shared symbols of language. Without language, the intricate logic of science and the precision of technology would be impossible to communicate or preserve. Thus, language is not merely a means of communication. It is the mechanism that turns human thought into the machinery of science and technology. The clever twist is the moment when language doesn't just describe the world, but starts to shape how we see it. It's not just about naming things. It's about reimagining them. This shift happens when a term is borrowed from one field and applied to another. Suddenly, a concept from physics becomes a metaphor for understanding biology, or a word from mathematics becomes a tool for engineering. This twist isn't accidental. It's the result of deep thinking, cross-disciplinary dialogue, and a willingness to question assumptions. Language becomes a bridge between the abstract and the tangible. The clever twist is what turns a simple word into a powerful idea. It's how we move from electricity to electric car, from code to software, and from algorithm to AI. In this way, language doesn't just reflect progress. It drives it. It's the invisible force that turns questions into innovations and possibilities into realities. The real science isn't just equations or blueprints. It's the quiet hum of systems working in harmony, the rhythm of data flowing through networks, the unseen logic that powers our world. Language is the bridge between the abstract and the tangible, between what we imagine and what we build. It's how we describe the invisible forces that shape our reality. From the first code written in a language to the first algorithm designed, every breakthrough was preceded by a precise and powerful use of language to name, define, and manipulate the unknown. The evolution of science and technology is as much a linguistic evolution as it is a technical one. We don't just describe the world, we create it through the words we choose. Language is not just a tool. It's a force that shapes how we think, how we build, and how we imagine the future. And in that, it is the silent engine of progress. Imagine the world as a vast, intricate machine, and language as the blueprint that allows it to function. Without precise instructions, the gears of science and technology would grind to a halt. Language gives scientists the tools to describe the invisible, to build the intangible, and to pass knowledge from one mind to another across time and space. Without language, even the most brilliant ideas would remain trapped in the minds of their creators. Never shared, never built, never understood. It's like a bridge between thought and action, between imagination and reality. A tool that transforms the abstract into the concrete. So, in a way, language is the invisible hand that guides the evolution of science and technology. A gloriously dumb but accurate analogy for the role it plays in shaping our world. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a world where the words you speak connect you to people across continents, where language is no longer a barrier but a bridge. This is the quiet revolution of globalization, where words have traveled farther than ever before. Every time you say hello in English, you're not just greeting someone. You're participating in a global conversation that has shaped the way we think, work, and connect. But this isn't just about English. Languages like Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic are also spreading across borders, carrying with them cultures, histories, and identities. As we explore this journey, we'll see how language is both a tool of power and a symbol of resistance, shaping our world in ways we may never fully understand. So, what does it mean for a language to go global? What happens when words lose their roots and are forced to adapt to new cultures, new contexts, and new people? This is the story of how language has become a global force, and how it continues to shape the world we live in. So, what exactly are we talking about? It's not just about learning a few words or phrases. It's about the shifting sands of communication across cultures, borders, and generations. Globalization of language means more than English dominating the world. It's about how languages intertwine, borrow, and evolve through contact and exchange. It's also about the power dynamics of language. Who speaks what, when, and why? English is often the lingua franca, but it's not the only one shaping the future of global communication. The globalization of language isn't just a linguistic phenomenon. It's a reflection of our shared humanity, our interdependence, and the ways we connect across divides. Understanding this shift requires more than vocabulary. It demands empathy, critical thinking, and a recognition of the complex forces that shape how we speak, listen, and understand each other. You should secretly care about this because the languages you speak shape the way you think. The way you frame reality is influenced by the vocabulary and grammar of your native tongue. When a language disappears, so does the unique way its speakers perceive and express the world. This is not just about words, it's about thought itself. The dominance of English may seem inevitable, but it's not neutral. It carries the weight of history, politics, and power, shaping the way knowledge is produced and shared across the globe. By paying attention to the globalization of language, you're not just learning about communication, you're understanding the forces that shape our world and our minds. This isn't just about language. It's about power, identity, and the future of human connection. And that is something you should care about, deeply. The roots of English stretch back to the 5th century, when Germanic tribes like the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes arrived in what is now England, bringing with them a fusion of dialects that would eventually form Old English. By the 11th century, the Norman conquest introduced a heavy layer of French vocabulary, reshaping English grammar and expanding its lexicon, as seen in words like government and justice. The 19th century's British Empire solidified English as a global lingua franca, with colonies from India to Africa adopting it for administration, education, and commerce, often at the cost of local languages. The 20th century brought English to new heights, with the rise of mass media, technology, and international communication, making it the dominant language of science, business, and culture. Today, English is spoken by over 1.5 billion people, but its dominance is both a bridge and a barrier, shaping identities, economies, and global interactions in complex and often unequal ways. Imagine the world as one big classroom, and everyone speaks a different language. But now, most of the teachers and books are in one language: English. English is like a common toy that everyone wants to play with. It's used for games, stories, and even making new friends across the world. But even though English is everywhere, other languages are still important. They carry the history and feelings of the people who speak them. So, the world is learning English, but it's also keeping its other languages alive, like a big family where everyone has a special voice. Understanding this helps us see how we're all connected, even when we speak different languages. The globalization of language begins with a foundation, a lingua franca that is both functional and widespread. English, in particular, has become the bridge between cultures, economies, and technologies across the globe. This linguistic bridge was not built overnight. It was constructed through centuries of colonial expansion, trade, and technological innovation. Each step in its development laid the groundwork for its current global reach. Moreover, the global spread of English is supported by its integration into international institutions, such as the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Olympic Committee, which mandate its use for communication and documentation. The setup also includes the influence of media and entertainment, as English language films, music, and literature have become dominant in global culture, shaping the way people communicate and think. In this way, the foundation of globalization is laid not just by language itself, but by the systems, institutions, and cultural forces that have made it possible for English and other languages to shape the modern world. Once a language becomes dominant, it starts to influence the structure and vocabulary of other languages through a process called language transfer. This can happen through direct contact, such as trade, migration, or media, where speakers of different languages interact regularly. Over time, these linguistic interactions lead to the adoption of loanwords, grammatical structures, and even pronunciation patterns. This is especially common in areas with significant foreign economic or cultural influence. This process isn't just about vocabulary. It's about how people think and express themselves. English, for example, has influenced the way many languages structure their sentences and describe abstract concepts. The mechanism of language transfer is subtle and often unconscious, but it shapes the evolution of languages in profound ways. It's a silent, ongoing process that reflects the interconnectedness of human societies. The clever twist lies in the way globalization doesn't just spread language, but reshapes it through a process known as linguistic hybridization. When people from different linguistic backgrounds communicate, they create new forms of expression that blend the old with the new. This hybridization is not random. It's a deliberate act of adaptation, where speakers modify grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation to fit new contexts and identities. It's a way to bridge cultural gaps while preserving personal linguistic heritage. Hybridization also enables marginalized communities to assert their voices and reclaim their linguistic identity in a globalized world. It's a powerful tool for cultural preservation and empowerment. In this way, language becomes more than a means of communication. It becomes a site of cultural negotiation, identity formation, and social resilience. It reflects the complexities of human interaction in an interconnected world. Beneath the surface of linguistic evolution, there is a science of sound and structure, a silent architecture that shapes how we speak and understand the world. Neuroscience reveals that language is not just spoken. It's felt, processed in the brain's left hemisphere, where rhythm, pitch, and meaning converge. Linguists use tools like spectrograms to decode these patterns, revealing how phonemes, units of sound, differ across languages, even when they sound similar to us. The science is not just academic. It underpins the way we connect, negotiate, and even think across cultures, shaping the very fabric of our globalized world. Understanding this science allows us to see language not as a barrier, but as a bridge, built on patterns, shared across continents, and evolving with every voice that joins the chorus. Imagine a great river, winding through the world, carrying with it not just water, but the voices of millions. It starts as a small stream, fed by local springs, but grows as it merges with other rivers, each bringing new currents and new speech. At first, the river is clear and defined by its source. But as it travels, it picks up new tributaries, each contributing to its volume, its speed, and its character. Some tributaries are strong, others are soft, but all shape the river in their own way. This analogy is, in many ways, gloriously dumb. It simplifies the complex and often contentious history of language. But it is also, in its own way, stunningly accurate. It captures the inevitability of connection, the friction of convergence, and the beauty of transformation. In the end, language, like water, is both a force of nature and a mirror of human experience. It shapes our worlds and is shaped by it. The globalization of language is not just a linguistic phenomenon. It is a reflection of our shared human journey. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. There are over 7,000 languages spoken across the world, but many of them are fading into silence, one word at a time. Each language carries a unique worldview, a way of understanding the world that has been shaped by generations of human experience. These languages are more than just tools of communication. They are living archives of culture, history, and identity. When a language disappears, it takes with it a part of humanity's collective memory, a unique way of seeing the world. The journey to preserve and revive these languages is not just about saving words. It's about saving lives, stories, and the soul of a people. When we speak of endangered languages, we're not just talking about words. We're speaking of entire worlds, of histories, traditions, and ways of seeing the world that are vanishing. Each language holds a unique way of understanding time, space, and even emotion. It's a lens through which a community views its past and shapes its future. The decline of a language is a slow erosion of culture. It's like watching a song fade from memory, leaving behind only echoes of what once was. Reviving a language is not just about saving words. It's about restoring a way of life rekindling connection, and giving future generations a voice that has been silenced. This isn't just about preservation. It's about reclaiming a heritage that was nearly lost and giving it a chance to live again in the hearts and mouths of the people who carry it. You might think your language is just a tool, but it's a living thread in the fabric of who you are. Every word carries the weight of generations, and when a language dies, so does a piece of your identity. When a language vanishes, it's not just words that disappear. It's stories, songs, and the way people connect with the world. These are not just linguistic artifacts. They are cultural memories. You may not have spoken the language, but you carry its echoes in your heritage. To ignore its decline is to silently erase your roots and the wisdom of those who came before you. Every language lost is a bridge burned, a window closed. The world is richer for its diversity, and every voice that fades makes it poorer. You deserve to be part of something greater than yourself. So, if you're listening, you're already part of the solution. Your silence or your action matters. Let's not let the voices of the past be the only ones we remember. In the year 1700, across the vast forests of Siberia, a hunter spoke only in his native language, a tongue passed down through generations, alive with meaning and sound. But as empires rose and roads were carved, the language of the hunter became a whisper, spoken only in secret, feared by those who saw it as a relic of a vanishing world. In the 20th century, a linguist recorded the last words of a dying speaker, his voice trembling, his words a final gift to history, a warning of what might be lost. Today, these languages live on in the hearts of a few, but their survival depends on more than memory. It requires action, effort, and love for the past that shapes the future. This is not just about words. It's about identity, connection, and the right of every person to speak their truth in their own voice. Imagine you have a secret that only your family knows. A song, a story, a way of saying hello. One day, that secret might disappear, and no one will know it ever existed. That secret is a language, and when that language is forgotten, something inside our world is lost forever. Not just words, but the way people see the world, the way they love, the way they remember. But here's the thing, even if no one speaks it anymore, that language can still live. In songs and stories, in the hearts of those who remember. It doesn't have to die if we listen. So we must listen, not just to the words, but to the people who carry them. Because every language is a piece of who we are, and if we lose it, we lose a part of ourselves. It's not too late, and it's not just about words. It's about remembering, about holding on, about making sure that no one ever has to say, I don't know what they meant. The first step in preserving a language is to listen, really listen, to the voices that have carried it through generations. These voices are not just words, they are stories, songs, and the heartbeat of a community that has survived despite the odds. This process requires patience, respect, and a deep understanding that every word is a piece of a living, breathing culture. It starts with a foundation, an archive, a dictionary, or a collection of stories. That becomes the building block for future revival. This first step is quiet, but powerful. It's about honoring the past while laying the groundwork for a language that can thrive again. Once a language is identified as endangered, the first step is to document it, to capture its sounds, grammar, and meaning before they fade away. This is not just about words, but about the world they carry, the stories, the wisdom, and the way people see their place in the universe. But technology alone isn't enough. It must be paired with the voices of the people who speak the language, who carry it in their hearts and their daily lives. The next step is to bring the language back into everyday use, to teach it to the next generation, so it lives on, not just in archives, but in the lives of its speakers. This is not a task for a single generation. It is a promise made to the future, a commitment to keep the voices of the past alive in the present and the coming days. The third step isn't about more words or more people. It's about making the language feel like home again. It's about giving it a new kind of life, one that fits in with the modern world without losing its soul. This twist is simple yet profound. It's about finding ways to use the language in daily life, in technology, in schools, and in the hearts of its people. It's not just about saving words. It's about making them matter again. Other times, it means bringing the language back into the heart of a community, in songs, stories, and rituals. It's about remembering that language isn't just a tool. It's a way of being. This step isn't about perfection. It's about possibility. It's about showing people that their language has a place in the future, not just in the past. And in that moment, the language doesn't just live. It breathes, and it belongs. Beneath the surface of every word, every sound, there is a science of sound that carries the soul of a people. Language is not just communication. It's a fingerprint of identity, etched in time and memory. Linguists use tools like acoustic analysis and computational modeling to map the rhythm, pitch, and tone of endangered voices. These are not just sounds. They're the heartbeat of a language's survival. Each vowel, each consonant, is a thread in the fabric of a culture. And when a language dies, it takes with it a unique way of thinking, a way of seeing the world that no other language can fully capture. The science of language preservation is not just about saving words. It's about saving worlds. It's about holding space for the unknown, for the unspoken, for the wisdom that lies in the silence between the sounds. This is where the science hums, quiet, persistent, and deeply human. It is a call to listen, to learn, to protect the voices that are fading before they are gone forever. A language is like a tree. It has roots that stretch deep into the past, branches that reach wide into the present, and leaves that whisper stories to the wind. When a language is endangered, the tree is weakened, its branches brittle, its leaves falling like memories slipping through our fingers. But when we nurture the language, we're not just saving words. We're giving life back to a family, a history, a way of seeing the world. Language isn't just a tool. It's a soul. And every time we speak it, we're breathing life into something that might otherwise fade into silence. So let's not be afraid to be a little dumb. Let's be the ones who listen, who learn, who carry the weight of memory with open hearts. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. What if the next revolution in communication isn't a device, but a language? A language that understands you, learns from you, and evolves with you. Imagine a world where your thoughts are translated before you speak, where words are no longer barriers, but bridges. This isn't science fiction. It's the future of language, shaped by AI, technology, and the unbreakable human need to connect. In this video, we'll explore how language is evolving, and how it might redefine what it means to be understood. We'll ask, can technology help us speak more deeply, not just more clearly? And most importantly, can it help us connect more than ever before? So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just about chatbots or translation apps. It's about how technology is changing the way we speak, listen, and connect across cultures. We're looking at AI that can learn to speak like us, understand nuances, and even help us express things we never knew we wanted to say. This isn't just about technology. It's about how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we imagine the future of human connection. The question is, how do we balance innovation with authenticity? How do we keep our voices alive in a world that's getting louder and more connected? What we're really talking about is the evolving relationship between language, technology, and the human spirit. How they shape each other, and how they might shape the future. You might not realize it, but every time you text a friend or scroll through social media, you're part of a linguistic revolution. The way we communicate is shifting, and it's not just about efficiency anymore. It's about how we connect, even when we're not speaking the same language. AI isn't just a tool, it's a bridge. It's helping people from different cultures understand each other in real time, and in doing so, it's redefining what it means to speak, to listen, and to be understood. Imagine a world where language isn't a barrier, but a shared experience, where your thoughts can be conveyed with nuance, even across cultures, and where miscommunication is a thing of the past. This isn't just about technology, it's about empathy. The future of language is a future where we're not just learning to speak with machines, but learning to speak with each other in ways we've never imagined. You should care because the way we speak shapes the way we think, and the way we think shapes the way we live. The future of language is a future worth building, one word at a time. We began with spoken words, etched into caves, then carved into stone. Language wasn't just communication, it was survival, a tool to shape the world around us. Then came the scribes, the poets, the philosophers, each carrying the weight of their people's stories, their truths, their dreams. Language became a bridge between generations. Then came the internet, a global village where words could travel across continents in seconds. Language became a living, breathing force, fluid, evolving, and interconnected. Now, AI and technology are rewriting the rules. Language is no longer just a human trait. It's a shared endeavor, a collaborative dance between mind and machine. And yet, at the heart of it all, language remains a human connection. It's not just about what we say. It's about who we are and who we want to become. So imagine, if you will, a world where your phone knows what you're going to say before you say it. It's like having a super smart friend who always listens and helps you out. But it's not just about making things faster. It's about making things easier, more fun, and more connected. Like when your phone can understand your voice, even when you're tired or sleepy. It's like when you're playing a game and the computer knows exactly what you need next. It makes you feel smart and it makes the game better. And the best part? It's not taking away from your ideas. It's helping you find new ones, like a friendly robot who loves to brainstorm with you. So in the end, it's not about replacing human connection. It's about making it stronger, more creative, and more fun. Just like a really good game. The journey begins with a simple question. How do we translate meaning into something a machine can understand? It starts with humans, our words, and the way we speak them. Before the code runs, there's data. And data is built from the very voices and texts we use every day. What we say, how we say it, and why we say it. These machines are not just listening. They're learning. They take our words, our patterns, our quirks, and start to map meaning from sound to structure. But this isn't just about words. It's about context. It's about how we use language to express ideas, emotions, and connections that go beyond the surface. So the first step is not just about setup. It's about building a bridge between human expression and machine understanding. It's the beginning of a conversation that's just getting started. Once the model has seen millions of examples, it starts to notice patterns in how words connect. It learns not just what words mean, but how they fit together in sentences, in conversations, in the rhythm of human speech. It's like building a giant map of language, where each word is a place, and each connection is a road. The more it explores, the clearer the paths become, and the more it can predict where the next word might go. But it's not just about prediction. It's about understanding. The model learns to recognize the tone, the intent, the emotion behind words. It starts to feel the difference between a question and an accusation, between a joke and a warning. This is where the magic happens. The model doesn't just mimic language. It begins to create, to respond, to connect. It becomes a partner in conversations, a bridge between people, a tool for understanding. And with every new interaction, it learns a little more. It grows, it adapts, it evolves. It's not just a machine. It's a reflection of human language, shaped by human connection, powered by human curiosity. Now, here's the clever twist. These models don't just mimic language. They learn to think in it. They process vast amounts of text, not just as words, but as patterns of meaning, building a kind of digital intuition about how people actually communicate. This means they can predict what comes next, not just in sentences, but in conversations, in emotions, even in cultural context. They don't just follow rules. They try to understand the spirit behind the words. But the real magic is that they don't just process language. They shape it. They help people express ideas more clearly, find words they didn't know they had, and even open new ways of thinking about how we connect. So while these models are powerful, they're not replacements for human connection. They're tools that help us reach deeper into our shared language, and in doing so, they help us reach each other more clearly. The future of language isn't just about machines understanding us. It's about us understanding each other more deeply, more fully, through the power of language and the tools that help it thrive. Behind every word we speak, there's a world of code and computation, a silent symphony of symbols and systems working in harmony to understand us. Neural networks, like a brain in silicon, learn from our speech, our writing, our silence, and begin to predict, translate, and connect across the vast, uncharted landscapes of language. It's not just about words. It's about meaning, nuance, and the quiet, invisible dance of intent and context that makes language more than just a tool. This science isn't replacing us. It's opening new doors to understanding, to empathy, to the possibility of truly listening across cultures and generations. And so, in the quiet hum of algorithms and the hum of human connection, we find a future where language evolves not to divide, but to unite. Imagine a tree that learns from every leaf it drops. It doesn't just remember, it adapts, it grows, and it shares wisdom with the forest. That's what language is becoming, a living, breathing network of shared understanding. AI isn't replacing our voices. It's amplifying them. Like a chorus that grows louder, not louder in volume, but in depth, so that even the quietest thought can be heard across the world. The future of language is not about replacing human connection, but expanding it. Like a bridge that gets stronger the more people walk across it, carrying more than just words, but meaning. We are not just building tools. We are building a shared dream. One where technology doesn't erase us, but helps us dream bigger, speak deeper, and feel more connected than ever before. So maybe the future isn't about being smarter. It's about being more human. And in that, we might just find the most beautiful kind of progress. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.